I just had my delicious dinner of quick stir-fried rice and vegetables. And now that I'm not so hungry, I feel like I can go on and talk about some nutrient-dense snacks slash even dessert. So what I'm going to show you how to make now is a almond butter dipping sauce. You could use peanut butter, you could use sunflower butter, just about any nut butter would work. I particularly like almond butter for this dish. So what we're going to do is make this dipping sauce, and it'll have many possibilities of things that can be dipped into it. For instance, you could do apples and pears, carrots, and if you don't want to slice the carrots yourself, you can buy them already sliced. Celery works well with the almond butter. It also does great with peanut butter. You may have had peanut butter spread on celery. You could do crackers with it. And then I was in North Carolina just yesterday and near a strawberry orchard, and so I brought back some delicious strawberries. So I'm really eager to make this sauce so I can really highlight the flavors of all these foods. And one of the advantages of having a nut butter as part of your snack or dessert is that it's very high in a very good kind of fat. It's a monounsaturated fat, so almond butter. It's got fiber, it's got protein, and if you eat it with something sweet, like a sweet fruit, like an apple, by having that high fiber and fat, you're going to slow down the movement of the sweeter food through your system, and there'll be less of a rush of glucose going into your bloodstream, and you're going to have what we call more satiety. That is, you're going to feel full and satisfied after you eat that, as opposed to if you just ate an apple, for instance. So whenever you eat a snack, even if it's a healthy snack such as a fruit, I recommend eating it with something that has a little fat in it, and in this case you also have fiber, because that's going to help with the reduce the glycemic load of that food. So moving on with making the snack. So I've got some almond butter here, and it's all natural, so I had to stir it up to get the oil to mix with the fat. It'll be the same thing if you get all natural peanut butter. And I look for nut butters that don't have any sugar added to them. You even may have some all natural, and you may have organic nut butter, but some still have sugar added to it to get it to sort of stay the fat mixed with the rest of the nut. Now, a little trick I can tell you, if you buy a jar of an all-natural nut butter, you'll see that the oil is on the top. If you flip that jar over and then put it in the fridge, the oil will start coming to the top, but as it gets cold, it's going to actually mix in with the rest of the nut butter and not come back to the top again. So that, I learned that trick in culinary school. It cost me about $10,000, and I'm giving it to you for free. Okay, so what you want to do is get your nut butter, and by the way, by the time we add water to this, it's going to double in volume. So I'm not going to put a lot of nut butter in here, but here it is. And you could add cold or room temperature water, but actually the coldness is going to make the nut butter kind of seize up, and it's going to be harder to mix it. So I have actually boiled some water, and it's still warm, and I'm going to add little bits of that at a time. And I'm going to go over here and get my little canister of hot water. And what we're going to do, I'm going to put in a little bit at a time. I'm not going to put the whole amount of water I'm going to add. I'm going to end up adding about a fourth. I have about a third of a cup of nut butter in here, and I'm going to add maybe almost that amount of water. Now you can see how adding that little bit of water, it actually makes it seize up even more. So you don't want to add a whole bunch at once, but eventually it's going to get to the point where it's not going to seize up so much on you, and it's going to get more like a sauce. So just mix it in really well, and you have to be a little bit patient with it. You could use a whisk, but in the beginning it'll sort of stick within the tines of the whisk. So a fork will work just fine. And remember, we're keeping things simple, aren't we? So you can see it got thin for a little bit, and now it's kind of thickened up again. So I'm going to add a little bit more water. It's really important, I can promise you, that you don't add all the water all at once, or you'll be getting almond butter or peanut butter all over you, and it will not work at turning it into a sauce as well as if you just add a little bit at a time. Plus, you don't want to add any more than you need to. So now we're getting almost saucy. You could stop here and leave it thicker if you wanted to, but it actually will, if you put it back in the fridge, it's going to thicken up again. So it's almost there. So while we're almost there, I'm going to add a few things to make this flavor more of a treat type of flavor. So I have some vanilla extract, and I'm going to put maybe a fourth of a teaspoon in this amount. And I have some cinnamon. It's a great spice to add to this. And as we have talked about in class, all of your spices are like a little culinary medicine cabinet. And a lot of them are anti-inflammatory, or they affect the epigenetics, the behavior of your genes. And also cinnamon has been associated as being a spice to consider if one has trouble with controlling their blood sugar, but I'm not going to make promises about that. So I'm mixing in these, and I also want to mention that salt can be your friend as long as you don't use too much, the right amount. Salt will bring out the flavor of whatever it's mixed with. So actually, if you have something that is kind of on the sweet side, it will bring out the sweetness in it. If you may have seen people eat salty things with melon, even put salt on their watermelon. So salt brings out the flavor of whatever it's added to. So I'm going to add just a little tad of salt. I mean just a tad. It wasn't even close to an eighth of a teaspoon. And just get some flavors going in here. And I'm going to add a little bit of honey to it. I mentioned in the last class that I have a neighbor who has chickens. Well, I have other neighbors who have bees, and they get delicious honey. So I have put in not quite a teaspoon, maybe a half a teaspoon of honey in here. Going to mix that in. And I think, I mean, it's a nice thickness. This thickness would probably be just about right for strawberries. But I'm going to add just a little bit more liquid to make it a little bit saucier, or as my classmate from Long Island would say, sauce. So we have an almond butter dipping sauce here. Okay, so I think that looks good. And if there's any of it left, I'm going to put it in a container and put it in the fridge. This will be good in the fridge for days. I'd say at least 5 days. And then you'll take whatever it is you want to have it with. And I'm really eager to have it with the strawberry to see how it tastes. That's really delicious. So there you have it. Almond butter, dipping sauce, and the dipping vegetables and fruits of your choice. Enjoy your snacking. See you back in class.